I'm going to introduce everyone on our panel, and we're going to try and attempt to have a bunch of time at the end for questions, because I know that's usually what people want. So we'll do what we can within the time we have. So first here is Dawn Barger, who's manager of Post Hoc Management. She works with the band The National, Nicole Atkins, and several others. And Dawn has a lot of experience in the do-it-yourself model, and just how to kind of navigate the system going outside the major label world. Next to her is Spott, Philpott, who's label manager of Merge Records. Merge Records is an independent label out of North Carolina, and they have Arcade Fire and many wonderful independent bands, and Spott oversees, as label manager, all aspects of their business there. Next to Spott is Richard James Burgess. Richard's at Smithsonian, Folkways Recording, and Burgess World Company. Richard started as a producer and has scripted a book on the art of music production, and he's also now with Smithsonian Folkways, which is a lot of catalog company, and they also do new signings, but they also help kind of make sure that a lot of important recordings are archived and get them out into the world. And next to Richard is Amaechi, Uzoigwe, who's a partner of Definitive Jux and Official FM. Definitive Jux is a label, and they've done a lot of things in the rap context, I guess in the hip-hop context, and have really used the internet to, and also like special marketing to help sell records in this new world, and has also started Official FM, which is a service that artists can use to market and sell their music directly. So without further ado, I will start by asking some questions of our panelists and getting this on the road. So, the first thing that says indie labels are rolling up their sleeves and actively reshaping how the artists can flourish in the noisy network world. How are today's indies distributing their music? So I just want to start with Amaechi at the end and just say, how do you get your music out there today? How are you able to sell your music and get to your fans?
Well, we have, traditional distribution deals with physical and digital distributors. That's no longer the focus of what we do, that we pretty much abandoned that model just for economic reasons mainly, and because we just saw it going off the cliff focusing. So we decided to focus mainly on our website. In 2006, we launched what I believe is the first music website in the world that allowed physical and digital purchasing in the same shopping cart. And that fact alone says a lot about the music business, that two guys sitting at a little indie label were the first guys to do this. We were not technology guys. We had no idea what we were doing. We just knew if you can sell people the physical and the digital in the same shopping cart, it would be a benefit to consumers. So we found some kid who was able to write the program, made it happen. Everyone else told us it would be a six-figure proposition and probably wouldn't work. We found some 25-year-old who did it for $5,000. It was one of the best things we ever did. And now that's become our main focus, with the ultimate goal of having a sort of subscription or fan club type thing, not what you hear about with the Spotify's, et cetera, not that kind of subscription, but $25, $50, $100 a year, you get all the music you want, physical, digital, t-shirts, tickets to shows, Because we have very hardcore fans. We're not selling to the casual music listener. We're selling to people who tattoo our logo on their skin. They'll buy anything that we do pretty much. So that's really our approach. It's not to try and compete. It's trying to know our market, know our audience, and sell to them, because these are the ones who see value in what we do. And these are the people that we work for, essentially, and our artists work for. So for us, Best Buy's great, iTunes is great, fine, but that's not our focus. Our focus is building our own destination, our own platform to service our customers, our fans, rather.
Richard, can you tell us a little bit how, what your distribution platform is and what your, I guess what your approach?
Sure. Well, a little bit of background quickly. Smithsonian Folkways is the representative of the National Museum. But it's important to note that we're not supported by federal appropriations. We don't get any money, any taxpayer money at all. We're completely self-sufficient. So we have 17 people that work there, and we have to bring in the money. So we operate exactly like any other indie label. We stand or fall by what we do. And when I first started there, basically the model was mainstream distribution was originally through Koch. We moved to Riker. Riker got folded into ADA. We're now with ADA, and we still do main store distribution, Borders, Barger, those kind of business through ADA. I used to work with the reggae bands. They used to have a saying. They used to say, "Full boost at all frequencies, Mom." And I always took that to mean do everything. And so since I've been at Folkways, what I've done is try to get into every different area of distribution. So we do direct distribution to consumers. We have our own fulfillment center with 3 people working. People can call up and order things. You can go online and order CDs, and it automatically, we actually have 3,500 albums, about 45,000 tracks, and you can basically go online and order the CD. If it's one of the ones we put out through Borders or Barnes & Nobles, it'll be in a digipack or a jewel case, and we'll just pack that up and send it out to you. But 90% of our catalog, 90% of the 3,500 recordings are on a print-on-demand basis. So we have a robot, a Microtech robot, and when you go online and order that CD, that your order goes directly through the robot. The robot makes the disc, and we come in the next morning or on Monday morning, whatever, pull the disc off the robot, package it up, and send it out. So we do that. We also do all the digital distribution. We do direct digital distribution from our own site. We do all the usual stores like iTunes, eMusic, you name it, even in the tiny stores. We just don't do the free stuff because of rights issues with the artists that we have on the label. And really, I mean, streaming is another big thing for us. Streaming has become a bigger and bigger part of our business. And also radio, Pandora, and Slack, and all those kinds of things. Those are all ways of bringing in money. And we're still making about the same amount of money as we were making 9-10 years ago. But if you look at the mix now, it's completely different. 9-10 years ago, it was almost all coming through a retail distributor. Now it's coming from a real broad mix of sources. And frankly, I prefer that because we're not so susceptible to, say, Tower going out of business or those kinds of problems.
Okay, Spott, same question to you, and also, Spott, and also just to the extent that you have, is your distribution the same in the United States, or ex-United States, and how many people do you work with to make the machine work? Which is, different for every label, and it's the thing you'll see here.
We're as well distributed by ADA, and happened for a long time. Until Touch and Go distribution folded, they dealt with our direct-to-store angle, and we handle our own digital distribution. But I really do like Amaechi said. I think finding people who are dedicated fans of the label is kind of the future, instead of depending on floor space and Barnes & Noble floors and stuff like that.
How do you manage dealing with different distribution deals directly? You don't deal with the one stop, you deal with iTunes directly or Amazon directly. So how do you manage that? And how many relationships? Are there a lot of relationships, or do you just focus on a few?
I think on that side, we're pretty judicious about the people we work with, and just for workload thing, I mean, we don't have digital deals with everybody, just because the accounting is crazy, but we do have direct relationships with everybody that we do work with, and it's just like any other relationship.
How many do you think are important to work with? Is that 5 relationships, 40 relationships? Is it
15?
Yeah. Workable, but there's a lot of sources, but
Yeah.
So Dawn, I guess if you want to put your own take on even the question and how you deal with it, as a manager of bands, and that's the way you set things up. Well, what have you learned?
Yeah, well, I've just learned that it's making sure that there's a direct relationship via the label is really important with the retail channels. So I've noticed I've worked with labels that both go to the indie stores directly and labels that rely on a bigger distributor to go to them. And I found you just get better coverage and better service, and royalties come back to you faster, and you feel like the accounting is a little more clear than other direct.
Do you generally have a relationship with one label that's worldwide? Do you seek to do different deals with different labels?
Every artist that I've worked with is a little different. It depends on what fits. The national are represented worldwide by PRD, and that makes it easy. But it makes sense for them to be worldwide because PRD is very strong. They have offices all over the world. And Nicole Atkins, who is signed to Razor and Tie now, we're currently looking for licensing overseas because Razor and Tie doesn't have anyone on the ground overseas. So we're looking to sub-license over there. And then the Antlers, who are with French Kiss here, have a sub-license through K7 overseas because, again, French Kiss doesn't have any presence overseas. So you really just have to cobble it together to make the best situation for your client.
One of the next things in the panel is, okay, so with all how you're distributing this music, I guess there's a question, how do you create buzzes around releases? There's so many options for people now, there's so many great online channels and social networks, but it's hard to navigate the field and be found. How are you able to be found amongst the, this multitude of music out there, different opportunities? And I guess I'll just let you guys walk down and give your opinions.
It's a great question, and I had the answer. I wish there was one answer. Our philosophy has always been, our success was almost accidental. We had no idea people would like the music that much. We had no idea, And that's what it was, good music, I think, really what it comes down to more than anything. If you're putting out music that people want to hear, whether it's pop music, or hip-hop, or electronic music, or folk music, or metal, it doesn't matter. It's just better be good. It better connect with an audience, or you're not going to make any money. It's as simple as that.
Even if it's good, how do you get people to hear the music that's good?
I think, for us now, since we're not even living a day-to-day label, we let all our staff go pretty much, so we don't need it anymore, and it's too expensive. My partner is a successful artist. He posts something on Facebook or Twitter, and next thing you know, 50,000 people know about it in an hour. And then boom, 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 and next thing you know, it's selling. Or people are talking about it, or going to the show, or whatever the case may be. So for us, we're trying to uncomplicate the process. We almost bring it back to when we started, when it was about running around in Manhattan, in Brooklyn, in the Bronx with 12 inches, just trying to push those and giving them away and doing deals with little record stores to buy 5 of them. Or getting into Guido or Stretch Armstrong because they played it and kids liked it. Then Fat Beats would be sold out the next day. And so we're trying to almost bring it back to the simplicity of putting out music that's resonating with people, because if you have half a brain and you have some traction, you can sell some records. It's not that hard, if people are buzzing about the artist. And I think a lot of, or especially with the struggles of the industry over the last several years, people have complicated it so much. They think, well, if I have the most tricked out website, or I have this, or I have that, I have all these bells and whistles, it's going to translate into people liking my music. They may like it more, or think you're cooler if they already like the music, but it's not going to convince someone to like the music because your social media is off the chain. It's not going to work. They've got to like the music. And again, that's all we're trying to really focus on. And let it sort of take flight if it's supposed to.
You don't even know what to talk to, and if any of you just want to throw out your ideas and stuff, because everything, relevance is different.
Well, I think what Amaechi says is absolutely true. There's this kind of impression that if you throw enough dollars at something, you can make anything successful. And having been in marketing for a long time, having been a manager before this, and a producer before that, and an artist before that, and a musician before that, I don't think that's true. I've seen so many situations where you can take a record that you believe is good, but you throw a lot of money at it and it doesn't stick for one reason or another. Maybe it's timing, whatever. But at Folkways, we're very much a niche label. Even in our most extreme, at the most extreme end of the things we might think of as being more commercial, we're still very much a niche label. So we always have between 4 and 12 interns. And one of the things we do is, before an album comes out, we're always looking at where does this fit, what's the niche. I think this applies to anything we do. Basically looking for similar artists, look at who their friends are on Facebook, just are there any associations, any groups, any discussion groups, any blogs related to it? And then we make sure we hit all those blogs and all those connections that you can possibly get online. We run a lot of competitions and things. We have a children's artist out now that actually Janine represents called Elizabeth Mitchell. She was in the indie group Ida. And I don't even remember, actually I think it was on our side that we came up with the idea, but we came up with the idea of doing a mask competition. So, this has gone out to all the kids. The record comes out in 3 days, Tuesday, and 2 days. And basically it's for kids to make masks, and they send them in, and then the prize is a story. There's Elizabeth Mitchell's daughter, who's featured on the record, and who wrote some of the songs, and she's young. Is going to make a mask and send it to the person. So anything we can do like that, bonus tracks, whatever it is that's appropriate to that particular genre. But we're always looking to find our niche and to really, micro-market it, essentially.
Do you guys want to speak to it? Should I just go on to the next question?
Well, I think we at Merge, we just like these guys said, we're lucky in that we have dedicated following. We've been around for a while, so people know what to expect, and so we're not trying to just introduce something out in the marketplace. And
One of the things that's even, I'm sorry to cut you off, but we were talking about a little bit, is do you feel like branding the label, having genre specific, does it help? I mean, is the label now a brand that people go to because they believe in you as an A&R resource?
I think less than a genre, but I mean, I think it's based on the music that people on the label like, and people that they're trusted, and they're from an artist background, which is different than a label owned by non-artists.
So people, in a way, they know Merge, they know quality music, they know it's the type of music they like. So in a way, in a way, it's like, okay, instead of having to figure out the artist, you kind of know that hopefully the artist from that label something you really like.
But like Amaechi said, we're not good at coming up with crazy little gimmicks, but hopefully we don't need to if the movie is good.
I'd agree that the gimmicks don't seem to be working so much anymore, but I think that there is something to be said about that one-on-one fan connection where you're going out and touring and you're making sure that the email list is building. And I think Topspin can be absolutely genius for these widgets, getting fans to give you an email in return for an MP3, so that you can build up these direct routes, so that with every record you're building this fan list bigger and bigger and bigger, and you have more access directly to the people that are already your fans to continue as a building for your audience, for the artist.
But are you using the social networking a lot? Do you?
We do all the normal things, but I really do think, like Don said, that the biggest way to reach fans is still touring. And just like how many years ago, but that's the best way to create a lifelong brand.
So that will lead me into the conversation of the major labels now have moved into this world where their market share is going down, and they're trying to figure out how to maintain their staffs and continue to deal with their overhead. And so they're moving into more of a 360 world, which involves them trying to get into touring and publishing and merchandising, things that have failed for them in the past, and they don't necessarily have the experience on, but they're trying to maybe figure out the model where they bring in people in-house to do these things. So is this something that any of you are considering as independents? Do you feel that not doing that has aided you in growing independence again as they were once? So
for us, it's like, since we came up DIY, it's like you teach us whatever, that's your hustle, that's how you make your money, that's how whatever, you pay your rent, you feed your kids, whatever you want to do, and it can be a lot of money. So we don't want to touch that. We don't do that. If our artists want us to sell their merch on our site, we'll do that, and we'll take a cut for doing so like anyone else would. But we don't really want to put our hands on their business like that because, maybe if you're a giant corporation with a bunch of lawyers who can stomp on somebody, problems, arise. These are our friends. We don't want to be in these situations. It gets complicated enough. So we stay away from that, but what we try and do is, if we can play a role in helping them, however that may be, and whether it's cash or it's this or a service, in exchange for our cut, we'll do that. But we don't want to covet people's stuff. We don't impose our own desires on their, on their business. Because quite frankly, our merch probably does better than all the artists' merch. So we don't need to.
The label.
The label merch does so well. I was saying on our phone, I don't want to leave this part out. Probably the smartest thing we ever did, the most effective thing we ever did on our site was to offer options to fans. When a new release comes out, you can get the $9 digital version, or you can get the $80 package, which has the CD and the digital and the autographed vinyl and a poster and a t-shirt, 75% plus of our fans will buy the most expensive package. And that blew our mind the first time it happened, but we said, well, obviously we're onto something. And ever since then, first week sales from our site have beat iTunes, Best Buy, every other vendor first week, because our fans want to get it from us, from the source. They want to get it right away, and they'll pay that extra money to get the extra value, which you're not going to be able to download a t-shirt from iTunes, obviously, and Best Buy has no interest in carrying our merchandise. So that's been the most effective tool or approach for us to monetize our company and keep all the money and share with our artists, as opposed to 5-6 other people getting in between the money.
And I do think that's the future. I mean, and we're lucky enough too to have the dedicated fans, and we haven't done what Amaechi's talking about, but I do think people want to belong, and it totally makes sense, as opposed to let's get another poster in orders, whatever,
We 90% of our artists are over 80 or dead, so we do have some younger artists and some living artists, and it's really great. And we have some touring artists. Actually, interestingly, in our Latino, we're building a really strong Latino collection right now, and we sell an awful lot of CDs. For instance, we have a mariachi group, Mariachi Los Caperas, and they do all the mariachi festivals, and we sell more CDs at those festivals than we do through any other source. So definitely touring is a wonderful thing. We never touch people's touring or publishing or merchandising, and I'm personally highly opposed to the 360 deal. I think it's a horrible way to treat artists, and it's tough enough for artists to make a living as it is.
Do you find it's hard to operate in this new regime where all the income sources are going down for records?
Well,
You have to find smarter ways to do things, because I guess, right, the problem is it's harder to sell records and to make money to stay in business.
Yeah, I think one of the things I've said recently in the office is, if we'd have done everything we've done over the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and the business has stayed the same, we'd be doing about triple or quadruple the business that we were doing 9, 10 years ago. So it's a little frustrating because we're implementing all these great strategies of doing things, being much more active, but a bigger marketing department, and we're staying in about the same place. But frankly, staying in the same place right now is pretty cool. I mean, we've gone up over the years a few %, but we're pretty happy to stay in the same place. It keeps all our 17 people out, and it keeps us putting out records. And we're a not-for-profit anyway, so we're very happy with where we stand right now. Looking into the future, it's hard to say. I mean, Spotify comes into America. Spotify's a good thing in some ways, but if you look at the royalty statements from Spotify, I'm not sure we could stay afloat if that became the primary model.
So with that, I guess that this part of this year is accounting for royalties from dozens of different sources, some of them fractions of pennies. Now, most of you are going through, maybe one distributor, maybe you have several distributors in different countries. Digitally, you may be dealing with 15 different digital distributors. And how do and we were talking on the phone, all of us, about people start labels, but you really in a way have to be a business person, because if you don't know how to do it and you sell records but you can't account to your artists, they're going to come after you and sue you for not accounting to them. You have to be able to account. And it's very difficult sometimes for people to figure out how to deal with all these sources, and these accounting statements are hundreds of pages long. So, do you outsource it? How have you been dealing with this idea of trying to pay people and pay on time and pay, semi-annually?
Well, we streamlined our whole operation because for years we had deals all over the place, a few different deals in America, multiple deals in Europe, Japan, South Africa, West Africa, everywhere, the Middle East, there's, contracts flying around and statements flying around. And you may make, $400 from one of these places over the course of 6 months. And it's like, is it
20 artists.
right? Does it justify
Across
all
the
the
county,
money?
it sounds good, but if you're making
people hours?
$400, you can't.
You're spending more money on
Yeah.
your staff than you are making. So we just did one basically global, more or less a global deal, and let them worry about those headaches. We're not accountants, we're music people, you know what I mean? So we let them do that. We focus on what we do best. Because back in the day, there was a science to it. I mean, you could really increase your margins even infinitesimally by doing all these different deals and making sure you're getting grades, da 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 da. If you're selling a lot of records, that 0.5% could translate into tens of thousands of dollars. It's not that marketplace anymore for us.
And there are some territories where the album sales have just collapsed
That's right.
completely.
Gone.
I mean, just like,
forget about it.
America
That's
is
right.
still selling a lot more records than certain countries in South
Portugal.
America. Portugal,
Yeah.
unbelievable. I mean, the National has sold
Nobody has
1,300
ever-
copies in the country, but we can play a 5,000 cap room.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, our Hungarian distributor says there are 2 stores in Hungary. So I don't know if it's true or not. We have deals everywhere. We have one person that basically disappears for about 4 months, twice a year, to get the royalty statements done. And they're just being done right now. And they're very thick, and it's mind-boggling, and it's only getting worse, especially with the streaming services. I think it's going to have to be automated. We also work with royalty share to help us out a bit. I don't know what the solution is. It's a real nightmare. It's a real tough. It's a tussle within our office because on the one hand we see the load that it puts on accounting and royalty statements and stuff. On the other hand, I feel like we should be in all these services. We should be on Spotify in Europe and anywhere where we have to, at least to find out how those things work.
And the options that you have for outsourcing it to someone, do they seem economically feasible? I don't know what cuts they take or anything, but presumably you can outsource that like you do anything else.
Yeah, I mean, we're still here.
Yeah, well, with a distributor like ADA or something, then at that point you've done that. But I guess otherwise you can, with digital deal, you can Orchard or one of these companies.
But let's not forget, I mean, everyone's caught, digital, sure, but physical is still 75% of the revenue. It's the cash cow still, and whoever's saying it's not is out of their mind. It's where all the money's made. Maybe not for the new artists, but for the established artists for sure, and established indie artists.
Now, what about licensing for artists? Now, I know indie artists, if we're talking indie, and that's a different word for different reasons.
Right.
There's independent record labels for all artists.
Right.
And then there's, an independent
Disney.
yourself type of artist. But, but with, I think I lost my train of thought, but with the idea of
Licensing.
independent artists, think licensing, commercials, motion pictures, things like that. Some artists are a little more precious about wanting to do that, and others aren't. But do you find that you're, trying to step up in that or moving in that direction?
I find that it's going down because the bigger artists now, I mean, we were doing $500,000 plus every year on that stuff because, no one, the bigger artists didn't want it or it was not cool, they couldn't bow down and take that $500,000 check. They're like, we'll take it. And we're supposed to be the ones who are all about indie and cred. And it's like, listen, this artist can buy his mama a house now. Okay, that's credibility to me. Like, why not? And so we did all kinds of movies and car commercials and video games. And it was like, wow, this is the best thing ever. Making more money than we were selling records. But then again, when the market shrunk, Led Zeppelin started doing Cadillac commercials, and everyone started taking the money, we just got squeezed out. So it's not nearly as profitable as it was, but one license can change everything.
Sure, yeah, no, I mean, that could be big money, and I mean, like I said, some artists are more precious about it, for good reason, depending on what it is, but certainly that is a big income stream, and, tours are now sponsored, and everything's going towards advertising revenue. Music is bigger than ever, so it's not like music's gone away, it's just how to make money from music, that's, everyone's trying to figure out.
I think licensing it's great. I mean, we do similar kinds of numbers to Amaechi, but it's unpredictable as a thing. You don't know if a big commercial is going to come in. We get some international things, and we get a car commercial in Spain, things like that, but they're very unpredictable. So I wouldn't want to predicate my business on licensing at this point.
we do the same thing. We can't, setting budgets and things, we can't plan, okay, this is going to bring this thing up, but it's totally, it saved the bottom line of a lot of releases, just a couple of placements.
Yeah.
And it's similar to t-shirts and stuff. It's like, you know, we do have a role in finding that stuff, but it's, you know, we don't have a lot of publishing because, you know, so it's,
Because you have to do your budgets at the beginning, it's hard to know when is it gonna come up, and it may make a difference for reserve, but you don't necessarily have any sort of. Does the National do licensing?
Yeah, all of my artists have done licensing on some level. It's, you know, I think it's good. I mean, it can really make a difference when an artist is developing. I mean, a $10,000 check when you're totally broke.
And what do you think people?
I mean, it's really
and it
helpful
really
at
used to
times.
be like nobody, you know, used to
Well,
be
the sponsored tour, the doing the Red Bull,
Well,
thing, the Amex
who wants to
thing,
go
and all
on
that,
a
you know.
do tour? You know, that's not.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually found
That-
I found that tour sponsorship is way more contentious
Yeah,
than
that's
licensing
right.
to films and television.
But I'm
It's
saying-
moving there now.
Licensing
Yeah.
used to, like in the mid-90s, used to just be like indie labels, you know, the last thing we wanted to do was, Superchunk did a British Knights commercial, song for a commercial, because British Knights said, if you don't do it, we'll hire a band that will sound like
Yeah.
And then they got like shoes and $1,000.
Yeah. It's also interesting too because that's another income stream that I've found is definitely slipping. You know, it's I feel like there are
even just the last year.
yeah. I mean there are, and I'm not sure if it's that artists are taking smaller checks or if you know I mean what's happening or if there's less money to go around as advertising has had a recession. You know the impact of the recession as well. But
Yeah.
it's you know I've gotten some really insulting offers lately where we're just like really are you know you have to be
Well,
kidding
there's
and you know it's,
and there's different, you know, there's a lot of ways to get, you said it sounded like, so resource things differently.
yeah.
And I'm gonna just want to ask one more question, and then I'll, you know, if you guys want to say anything, I'll just open this up to the floor. Is foreign, you know, I know, you know, a lot of labels, we've been focusing on the US a lot because most artists have, you know, their biggest market here. Interestingly enough, some artists actually have their bigger market in Europe and can't get arrested in their own country, but now that we've become, you know, music has really become more global, you know, it's just in Germany, and they really make their whole world based on marketing just in Germany, Austria, Sweden, and, you know, China's coming in, which has always had piracy, and Brazil has big tours. So how are you looking at, you know, now this being a global music world and taking advantage of that? Or are you?
Well, we are, I mean, both from my label and my technology company, Official FM, which is global and has employees all over the place. The music is exploding worldwide. I mean, I think what people in the West have to understand is that the rest of the world is catching up. They're getting online, they're making music. We've been very, you know, egocentric or whatever, culturally centric, where we're trying to impose our music on everywhere else. Nigeria, where my father's from, is the world's leading producer of film now. Over to Bollywood. How many people know that? You know, it's like it's happening everywhere. China, India. I think India has 600 million people under the age of 25. Only 13% of that country is online, and it's very low connection speed. In 2 years, I just read a report, it's going to be like 30% online at a high connection speed. I'm going to try and find an Indian rapper.
I mean, one of the problems is also bringing them here. It's expensive to market them to US markets. Almost you have to market them there.
Americans
Get your
don't want
resources
Indian
there.
rap.
Yeah, yeah.
And
You
Indians
need
don't
to
want
get
American
exactly,
rap. You know
exactly.
what I mean? That's what we have to get over. They want
You need
their
to get a
music.
person there in an office there and start running the
And
Indian
find
market.
people that are relevant to them, and they're China, Africa, Brazil we're in. Look, there's amazing music coming out of Brazil. There's music coming out of everywhere. And I think, you know, 50% of the world's never used a phone. That's a huge market, you know, to get to at some point. If we understand that it's not just about us. It's not about me imposing my artist, who I think is the greatest artist in the world, on a country where, you know, back 15 years ago, we go to France, and these kids would know every single lyric to every single song. They were rabid. But France is a great example where the government mandated that 60% of all music on French radio had to be French. French artists changed their music economy completely. They became the #2 hip hop market in the world. They just blew up just like that because they got to hear about music that was relevant to them. You know, it's one, you know, hey, Dr. Dre's great, everyone loves him, but they've got their own mini Dr. Dre's and Snoop Dogg's and all these other people that are, you know, doing it in French and talking about stuff that's culturally relevant to them. It just makes sense.
I mean, the U.S. is only about 30% of the world market, and Smithsonian's mission is the increase of diffusion of knowledge, and that doesn't mean just domestically. So we really try to get out there internationally. We only do about 10 to 15% of our business internationally, but that's still significant. We wouldn't be in a very good position if we lost that 10 to 15%. And more than anything else, it's great to get this stuff out there. The other thing that we try to do is, we just did a series, we're in the middle of, or towards the end of a series on Central Asian music. It's 10 CD and DVD set, and we try to get this music back to the countries from where it comes. Although I have to say that in our international distribution, what we find is that, you know, it's not necessarily so that, say, the Latino countries are importing Latino music. They're often more interested in American roots music, and it's unpredictable, again, what kind of music various different countries are going to want. But for us, it's kind of important to get stuff out around the world, not only to, you know, balance our bottom line at the end of the year, but as part of our mission.
Yes, at that, if not, do you want to add anything, or should not, I'll just open up the floor, because I know people usually want to ask questions, and so, if you guys just scream it out from your seat, okay?
Sure. My name's Brian McTeer. I'm a musician, and I'm mostly here to study the nonprofit called Bred Music. But I'm also a record producer, and nearly every record I've made the last 10 years, every single band has said to me, should we shop this? You know? And they're all really great records. They're all really good bands. And this is a really great conversation if I'm interested in starting a record label. But, you know, what do you guys say to all the musicians in the room about the effectiveness of getting their music, or if there's any point for them to get their music to you guys, to release their music? Is it something they should be aspiring to, or is it something that they need to do a lot more in advance of?
That's a good question. I personally would say anyone who's starting off should do it themselves to begin with, and if they can get some momentum, then you do a deal with the label. Once it makes sense for you. Unless you're like Prince or someone who's just out of this world, you know, just as you're the next Led Zeppelin, you know, like some music just jumps out at you, like obviously it's a hit. All right, fine, we'll do this. I think labels probably sign with one app. I mean, have you guys signed anyone for the demo tape?
12 years ago.
It doesn't really happen like that.
Well, it depends on what you call it.
Yeah.
I mean, it usually has to be a buzz, even for the Folkways, but even with my non-Folkways hat on, I think that bands really need to build up their leverage. And there's a certain point where you make that decision, am I using what I've built up as leverage to get a better deal with this label, or am I just going to go and run with my own label that I've already created and I've already sold 20,000 CDs on, so on and so forth. I think it's really important for artists to build themselves for as long as they can, for many reasons. One being that it gives them a very real understanding of what the process is. And so when they do get signed, if they do get signed, then they have a more realistic understanding of what the problems are, the challenges are.
They can keep all the money. They learn how to run a small business,
Exactly.
which is a big problem with the music industry. It's filled with a bunch of people who have no idea how to run a business, like government. They have no idea what it takes to, you know what I mean? You have employees that need to get paid, and food on it, you know what I mean? The basic stuff. And they get caught up in all this other nonsense. And I think artists are the ones who could benefit the most from starting a business and learning that 1 + 1 has to equal 2. And that you have to do so, you have to get your product to the marketplace. You got to get paid. You got a very simple lesson that will help you as you go through your career. I mean, it's not glamorous running around collecting, you know, on your consignment accounts from every little indie store like we had to do. But you know what? You do that, and you build relationships, and you build knowledge, and you build a base, and you know, the more you do it, the more you know, and the more you're able to save some money. And it's about money. It's a horrible economic model. It's still a horrible economic model. We're excavating ourselves from the rubble of it, but people are trying to do the same thing. Like government, once again, trying to do the same thing that got us to the problem. And I think we need to redo the whole economics of it, the licensing of it, everything about it. The monetization, the streaming you're talking about, the monetization of that. I think Beyonce's album last year, the year before, Most streamed album, like 10 million. She made $10,000.
No.
That's not the answer. At least this, the way it's now is it's a notebook. I heard Michael Jackson top 2.
Well, you mean
Not-
like
not
on
the-
Demand Street?
Well,
So
yeah.
yeah, just like, but that model has been trying to make it something, but
Well, I was,
did that help her sell lots of records? I guess the question is how many records did she sell?
She sold millions of physical records, and all the streams amounted to pennies, basically.
But did the streams help sell the millions of records? It's hard to know how
Not
many.
a data for someone like her,
Yeah.
but the point being that the economics behind it are so bad, somebody's got to revolutionize the economic approach.
But specific to bands, and I guess the digital aspect is tough because a band is not going to be able to set up a direct relationship with Amazon, MP3, iTunes, eMusic, all that. But probably through, I don't know what, CD, yeah.
TuneCore.
Yeah.
What were you saying? You're talking about official FM or Bandcamp. I don't know. Is that a way to kind of set up relationships directly? Or what was that?
It's a great way to start marketing and hopefully selling your music right away and building up ahead of steam so that you can go and you have a history. You can say, this many people have downloaded my music, this many people have streamed it, this many people have bought it, in these countries, and they listen to it for this amount of time, this, that, and that. Then you can actually go to someone with metrics and say, it's not just hype, I have tangible proof that my music is being consumed in some way, shape, or form. Which then, 5, 6, 7 years ago, these clowns at major labels, A&R guys would sit behind a computer and look at MySpace. How many MySpace hits somebody had, not even knowing that everyone was gaming it back then. And that's how they were getting, that was their job. And you can't rely on one set of data as far as I'm concerned. It's got to be real numbers, but you also have to go to these shows. You have to be there. You have to see it live and direct. Otherwise, what are you signing? Or what are you investing in?
Except for this one. But it's still true that people buy CDs at shows. They absolutely will. It's the best way to walk away, and an impulse buy. And I think that, when it comes down to it, you go right back to how things were, before the recording industry started, which is you play a show, people pay to get in. Now they pay to get in. They might also buy the t-shirt. They might also buy the CD. So, in a way, we don't necessarily have to worry about all the sophisticated stuff. But then the beautiful thing that's going on now is that all these tools are available. You got Bandcamp is absolutely amazing. Basically offers all those tools that we've been reading about, like name your own price model and for free or fixed price, so on and so forth. There's a new site, mint.com. I don't know if you guys are right, but that's the site where you can basically track your finances. You dial in your credit card and your bank accounts, and it effectively tells you how much of a percentage you're spending on gas and how much of a percentage you're spending on it. It's just amazing. And this stuff, you used to have to be an accountant to figure this out, and now you can do it for free online. So I'm a big fan of going online. I actually don't like the term do-it-yourself. I think that artists and musicians have to think of themselves as holistic professionals. It's no different than if you become a doctor, like a general practitioner. You're going to have to learn about business because you're going to be starting a practice and you're going to be running a business. It's the same if you're a musician. You can't just walk away from the responsibility of being a business person as well. I think that until musicians stop doing that, they'll keep getting ripped off for 360 days.
In the back, we can bring.
Thanks. My name is Burgess. I'm a singer-songwriter. I was very concerned when I found out about the distribution arm of Touch and Go shutting down. And a lot of my favorite labels were distributed through Touch and Go and labels that I had solicited and fantasized about working with. I was curious how it has affected Merge, having to search distributors, and the ratio of your sales, physical versus
We didn't
digital.
switch distributors because we've always worked with ADA, but so Touch and Go sold directly to independent stores, and so now we do some of that, and ADA does it as well, and
You sell directly to stores.
not a lot, from the store's perspective, I guess you would have to ask them, but about the service they get and that sort of thing. And I do think if these stores can survive, that's the future of our business, is these independent stores, because, like I said, orders Barnes & Noble, who knows if they'll be here 6 months from now. You know?
Sure.
But it's been weird, you know. Everybody's having a hard time, you know. People are on credit holds all the time, you know. You send out, and it's a lot of little problems every release. And
It hasn't been made up for in digital distribution.
I think it hasn't been made up for. I think it's affected digital. I think digital has gone up. I don't think as much as physical has gone down. But
Are you finding it hard to get 85 stores now? I mean, where you have
again, that's ADA's problem. So
Touch and Go is a great example. One of the best run companies
yeah,
in all
no,
of the music.
smartest,
Most credible,
smartest
story,
guy.
brilliant guy. Like, what happened? Amazing. He couldn't margins, and he's too good of a guy to go down that slippery slope and have to get ugly and sticky and funny. You know what I mean?
He stopped 2 years before he could have.
Yeah, exactly.
In the back by the door.
We go to these foreign markets that have a huge potential. Nigeria was mentioned. What's the best model? What are the channels to access these markets? What would you recommend?
I don't think there's any real clear channel. I think they're all developing countries, you know what I mean? And they're developing their own infrastructures. Brazil's a tough place. I mean, a lot of these places, I hate to say it, are mob run. You know, there's certain mobs that control Nigeria, the black market, you know. If you're not down, you know, you're going to get in a lot of trouble if you try and move in on that marketplace without the proper okays for the proper people. Brazil's the same way. It's very rough. I think they've got a lot of developing to do. But you know, the biggest rapper in Nigeria, a guy named Two-Face, he's probably doing 10, 12 million records every time, just in Nigeria. You know, and that's black market. So when there actually is an infrastructure for this stuff, it's going to be, the numbers are going to be crazy. And it's about, part of it's patience and time. And also getting, there are a lot of people who are in West Africa and South America now, Westerners who are setting up shop now, getting ready for that eventuality. China, I mean, we're still in the growth phase, you know, the first part of the dialectic when it comes to foreign territory. But it'll happen.
Where do we get that information about developments in the markets? Is there any source? Or
It's hard, man. Part of it is you get some stuff from the news sources, but a lot of it is not knowing people who are there, who are involved, who understand what's going on. I mean, it's a lot of research and a lot of networking. And
Education. You in the hat?
I'd love to know your thoughts on soundexchange.com. Do you all think it's an effective site to gather royalties for online spins? Is there an alternative?
Well, I was saying before about Pandora and Slacker, and all the online streaming, not on demand radio streams. That's how we get our royalties from them. So I mean, it's definitely a huge improvement over not getting royalties from terrestrial radio, which is still the state of play.
Thankfully, we have them, but there's a lot of room.
Yeah, wondering.
A lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of money from those sources that are caught in black boxes
That's
right
right.
now that they haven't made a decision on how or when to distribute. There was a discussion earlier this afternoon. A bunch of managers were talking about Sound Exchange and some of the digital collections, and some of the YouTube monies are just sort of stuck right now. The rates are figured out, and how they're going to
They've got
pass
tens
through.
of thousands of unregistered artists, and if you don't register in 2 years, they keep it.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
and then they distribute it to the biggest acts.
Yeah.
Generally.
Yeah.
That's fair.
What do you use for your email data management?
My website. We do have, I forgot what it's called.
We have an in-house system which we're about to change, but we have an e-commerce system that does that, and we're going to change to that. So, in fact, I heard the previous discussion, and people were talking about more integrated systems, and that's the trick, is if you can integrate all your systems so everything talks to everything else. So that's really where you go.
David?
You guys had a little riff on the licensing aspect and on the indie world, it being sort of in disfavor. But then there's the Feist story of how she does the Apple thing and her sales go up 100,000%. So I'm wondering from an indie perspective, from a manager's perspective, like where do you put that line in the sand between promotion, right, and letting your stuff get out there, and sales? When you want to, you know, when you want to get paid for a stream, for an activity, for a license, for an appearance, what have you.
It's touchy because I don't think she wants to be the iTunes girl or whatever, you know. And I don't know if she's become that. You know, you'd have to ask her, but you have to kind of project and figure out if I guess it's hard to know too.
But I mean, as a, you know, you've got repertoire that you might make available for some.com or some entity for quote unquote promotional purposes because you feel like there may be an uptick. But are you actually, you know, letting the barn door open proverbially? Like you're not making any sales? Or are you down the road? Like what's your experience with letting things go for free and then getting paid on the back?
Free is talking about free.
Whether you're gonna stream music or make an appearance versus getting paid for that appearance, getting a penny.
I mean, a lot of it is just acquiring fans, you know, and it depends on the act, you know. A band that maybe people haven't heard of, it's almost not necessarily a bad thing if the record leaks and people like it. If it leaks and nobody cares, it's not a good thing, you know. But it's tough these days, you know, like everyone who owns a record didn't pay for it. It's not a revelation, but
You got to be careful what you wish for too. If you want the iTunes thing that badly, and like you said, you get it, and then you get tagged with the iTunes girl or guy or whatever it may be. It's not about one thing. It's about using that as an opportunity to push yourself along, and not looking at it as the thing that's going to bring you to the promised land. Because it's not. You got to hustle. Be in front of that, behind that, on top of that, constantly introduce new music, not just the song that everyone knows. And that's, I think, people just get lazy, and they want to be famous so bad, they want to be popular so badly, they don't do the hard work that ensures, you know, stability. And you may actually, maybe you have a song that 1 million people buy, but only 50,000 are going to buy the album. Who ultimately is more important? Those 50,000 who are going to put $10, $20, $30, $40, $50 in their pocket, or that 1 million who's going to buy that song once and never buy another one of your songs again?
Purple shirt night, I hope that you guys, I'm sorry, John, if you wanted to.
Oh, no, I was also just going to speak to evaluating the opportunities. You know, I think that I'd say that almost every independent label goes to their artist for permission. You know, I mean, it's the artist in the end that makes that decision. And I think that you look at each opportunity and you evaluate it. You know, I mean, it's like, I think that cutting a catalog deal with someone like eMusic where there are royalties coming back to you is very different than allowing a song to be streamed on, say, spinner.com. You know, I mean, it's like when you're doing like a, you know, a situation where you're licensing a catalog and there is a return, that's something that a label will cut for their whole catalog. But when you're doing these individual things in the name of promotion, generally the artist gives permission behind that, or sometimes even the artist brings the opportunity to the label and says, we want to do this. You know, I mean, with the National, we decided to stream the whole record at the New York Times website because we thought it would be great for people to hear the music early, and that was something, you know, it wasn't monetized and it was promotion, but it felt like the right thing to do, you know, so it was one of those situations.
I'll take
And thanks for mentioning Spinner.com.
So they have the purple shirt night. Hopefully everyone will be able, the panel will be able to stay for a few minutes afterwards, and maybe you can have some questions, but we have a question at times.
My question was for you, Scott. And a couple weeks ago, Asthmatic Kitty got a lot of press for their email about the Sufjan album, urging their fans not to buy it from Amazon because they're doing this deep discount pricing. And it was my understanding that Amazon still pays the regular price and it's just a loss leader, so it didn't really make sense. But I thought you'd be an interesting person to ask because I remember reading that with the Arcade Fire release, that selling the album when it came out for $2.99 on Amazon played a role in it debuting at #1. And I think the price of digital music, personally, is too high. And I'm wondering if you think those types of sales are devaluing music, and relating to the Arcade Fire case.
There's a lot of opinion. There's a lot of opinion out there, and with Sufjan. It's interesting that, it's that every aspect of every avenue that we have, getting news to people, selling news to people, was insanely great, and that's one part of it. But it wasn't, people didn't buy. We sold 2,000 LPs in the first week. It wasn't that. And that was part of it, but I think it got overblown by. I'm not sure.
Well, I guess in another way to spin the question, do you think a majority of those customers that paid $2.99 for it would have just downloaded it for free, or they bought it for $2.99 instead of $9.99 off iTunes?
I think several segments. People who would have gotten it for free, people who would have never bought it, people who would have bought it for for full price, but here's this opportunity. I think it's just like each case is different, and if you can reach more people and still be okay with it, then it's tough.
Thank you, everybody. It was great. It really was.